From Recorded Future News and PRX, this is Click Here. When Crystal Catron's daughter Callie disappeared, her world narrowed into a single question. Where is she?
So I was asking around, leaving flyers, like, have you seen Callie here lately?
For most families of missing people, the search still looks like this. Flyers, phone calls, social media posts, all waiting for someone, somewhere, to recognize a face. But now, there's another way to look for someone. Facial recognition software. From Recorded Future News and PRX, this is Click Here, a show about how technology is changing everything. I'm Dina Temple-Raston. And this week, how facial recognition is quietly reshaping the search for missing people. For some families, it can feel almost miraculous. A match, a lead, a second chance. But the same technology is making it harder to disappear, and may also be making it harder to stay anonymous. And it raises a bigger question. What happens when recognition becomes the default? Stay with us. Crystal Catron was barely 19 when she gave birth to her daughter, Callie. And from the beginning, they were less like mother and daughter and more like two people growing up side by side.
She was my firstborn. Oh, my best friend. I did everything with her and spent half of my life with her.
In some ways, they raised each other.
We've been pretty much everywhere. The beach, stargazing, and everything. Literally, my best friend.
They shared road trips, inside jokes, even matching Disney tattoos. When Callie was about 16, Crystal got a Mickey Mouse tattoo on her leg.
It's all colored in. It looks just like Mickey Mouse with the red outfit on, the big yellow shoes.
So Callie got Minnie Mouse in that pink polka dot dress.
And every time we saw each other and hugged, we'd always make sure that they touched too. It was just a thing.
But over time, Crystal started to feel her daughter slipping away. Callie had 2 children of her own. Then came the drugs, and slowly, the person Crystal knew started to fade.
I didn't know who she was. Like, she didn't act like she cared about anybody or anything. And the phone calls were getting further apart.
By the time Callie was 24, disappearing had become part of a pattern. A few days gone, then a call, an apology, an excuse, and then it would happen again. But when she vanished in 2022, something felt different. This time, no call came, no explanation, and mothers know things.
My stomach started hurting, and I was sitting there like, something is wrong with Callie, and she needs to be found now.
If Callie had been famous, her disappearance might have triggered helicopters overhead, reporters doing live shots outside the family home, photos pushed to millions of phones. But Callie wasn't famous. She was a young woman struggling with addiction. And for Crystal, it was just one mother trying to keep her daughter from disappearing.
So I was asking around, leaving flyers, like, have you seen Callie here lately? I was asking everybody to please, let me know if they heard from her or talked to her or saw her.
The search moved at the speed of rumor. One possible sighting, one more person saying they might have seen her. And then, after weeks of dead ends, Crystal got this thing she'd been waiting for, a call from Callie.
I actually talked to her. She had first called and told me that she was in Chicago.
Chicago. Callie said she needed help, and could her mom possibly come get her? Crystal didn't hesitate. She started mapping out the drive, asking for time off work, trying not to push too hard in case her daughter disappeared again before she got there. And then
I didn't hear anything from her after October 14th.
Days passed, then weeks. Halloween came and went, then Thanksgiving, her father's birthday. Nothing.
She wouldn't have went Halloween or Thanksgiving without calling me and the kids. I don't care how mad she was. She wouldn't have missed the holidays.
Crystal didn't know what to do next. All she really had was her daughter's face on flyers and old photos on her phone. And that turned out to matter more than she realized, because a face on a flyer used to be something you handed to strangers at a gas station or taped to telephone poles. Now, it's something software can search. A face can become data. The distance between the eyes, the curve of the jaw, the shape of the nose, tiny measurements turned into a kind of digital fingerprint. And once that happens, the software can compare one face against millions, sometimes billions of other faces.
When I was at the Oklahoma AG's office, when I was asked to come in and build their human trafficking response unit, it's one of the first tools I said, you need this.
This is Kevin Metcalf. He's a former prosecutor who started the National Child Protection Task Force. It's a group that helps law enforcement find missing and exploited children. And he says facial recognition has changed investigations that once seemed impossible, including one case involving a young girl investigators had spent nearly a decade trying to identify. She kept appearing in child sexual abuse material online, but there was no name, no history, just a face. Then investigators ran her image through a program called Clearview AI. And suddenly, they had her name.
Within 2 minutes of taking that picture, I said, well, here she is. That's her. This is her now with her current family. This is her when she was a kid.
2 minutes after 10 years. That kind of speed can change everything. But it only works because systems like Clearview operate at enormous scale. The company built its database by scraping images from across the internet. Social media, news sites, personal web pages, pretty much anywhere a face appeared.
Clearview's database is made up of photos, all taken without permission, scraped right off the internet and our social media accounts.
Billions of images, collected without asking the people in them. That's why Clearview has gotten cease and desist letters from companies like Google and Facebook, and has faced fines and lawsuits in places like the UK and Italy. But for someone like Kevin Metcalf, that scale is what makes the tool useful. Because missing children aren't usually in criminal databases or in driver's license records.
Well, if you got a 6-year-old child, you can't run her face through a mugshot database because she is not going to be in there.
That's the promise of facial recognition. It can find people who would otherwise stay invisible. Missing children, fugitives, people lost in disasters. But facial recognition cuts both ways, because once a face becomes searchable, it can stop being entirely yours. More on that after the break. Stay with us. In 2021, Matthias Marx was an IT security researcher living in Hamburg, Germany. One morning, he was reading the New York Times and came across a story about Clearview.
I was not aware that Clearview AI exists, and I read this article. And just out of curiosity, I asked Clearview AI to provide a copy of my data. That is something I can do under the GDPR in Europe.
GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. That's the EU's data privacy law. And under those rules, companies have to tell people what data they hold on them. So Clearview responded. They had his face.
Which blew my mind because I didn't expect to be in this search engine. This means everyone who has a copy of my face can then identify me. And that was also a bit scary.
He asked them to delete it, Authorities ordered them to. But even then, there was a problem because databases like this don't stay frozen in time. They keep rebuilding themselves. New photos get uploaded, new faces get scraped, again and again and again.
By now, I assume that Clearview AI has my face in their database again, and also many others without their consent. We all probably leave some data on the internet, and usually these data get lost over time. When my password gets lost, I can change the password. Now that Clearview AI had a copy of my biometric face print, that was more scary because I cannot change my face.
And that gets to the heart of the fear surrounding facial recognition. Your face isn't just another piece of data, it's permanent. And once it's searchable, it no longer belongs only to you. It can be tracked, copied, used without your permission by governments, scammers, or anyone else who gets access. Just ask Ethan Zuckerman. He's an associate professor at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and he has spent years studying the blind spots built into digital systems. And he says privacy is only part of the problem with facial recognition. There's another issue, too. These systems don't work equally well on everyone.
Some of the world is digitally underrepresented. And this comes up in facial recognition, this comes up in AI.
That imbalance often starts with the data these systems are trained on. Who gets photographed, who gets uploaded, and who gets left out.
The bias is almost always a white guy selected a bunch of data. That data is not as representative as it should be, and therefore you end up inheriting a bunch of biases from it.
And as those systems learn from that data, the problems don't necessarily disappear.
And what happens is peculiarities of that model get amplified through that training process. And over time, you end up with something that's wholly unreliable. And that has not been well solved yet.
Especially for people of color. Study after study has found that these systems are often less accurate at identifying them. Sometimes they fail to recognize people at all. And sometimes they identify the wrong person instead. Which creates a dangerous contradiction. The technology can find some people almost instantly, while completely misreading others. And those mistakes have consequences. They shape who gets stopped, who gets questioned, who gets found, and who gets missed. And when the technology falls short, sometimes communities form around those gaps. There are online volunteers all across the country who spend hours combing through databases of the missing, trying to identify the people official systems overlook. Rihanna Bly is one of those people. She spends hours searching through the case files on NamUs, the federal database of missing and unidentified people. But Rihanna isn't a detective. She's not law enforcement. She's just someone who kept looking.
Everyone deserves their name, regardless if they have family that's still living or may not have the best situation. We just try our best to make sure they go home to somebody.
Over time, Rihanna noticed a pattern. The cases that seemed to stall were often those involving people without resources, the ones who never became national news, the people the system seemed to move past. So she started posting the cases herself, photos, names, details. She built a Facebook group called The Unidentified and Unsolved, and then started putting cases on TikTok, hoping someone, somewhere, might recognize a face. And along the way, the group started experimenting with facial recognition tools, like PimEyes.
It's an advanced face recognition search engine, or it can be used as a reverse image search tool as well.
Here's how it worked.
I had a Jane Doe who was about the ages of 14 to 17, I think in the New York area. It pulled a school website, and it had different pictures of multiple children, which I felt was kind of odd, but maybe similar to the case since she does look young.
PimEyes pointed her toward a possible match, so Rihanna posted the images online, hoping someone else might see what she was seeing. And eventually, someone did. and the girl got her name back. Now, Rihanna's group functions like a kind of volunteer search party. Dozens of cases posted every day. Faces shared across TikTok and Facebook, hoping the algorithm puts them in front of the right person. And every once in a while, it works. A post travels further than expected and lands in front of someone who recognizes the face staring back at them. That's what happened with Callie. A friend was scrolling through TikTok when she came across one of Rihanna's posts. A photo, a familiar face. She stopped and looked again and realized she knew exactly who she was looking at. She called Crystal right away.
She's like, Crystal, get on TikTok. And I'm like, TikTok? And I'm like, I don't have TikTok. And so while I'm trying to install TikTok, she's sending me these autopsy pictures. Like, how are you getting these? And she's like, they're posted on TikTok.
Finally, Crystal got the video to open.
Very sad song, along with a slideshow of autopsy pictures.
Photo after photo crossed the screen, and slowly, horribly, it became clear what she was looking at. They had found Callie.
Her hair was cut off. She had a black eye. It looked like a hole, like underneath her ear.
And then something she recognized immediately. The tattoo. Minnie Mouse in the pink polka dot dress. It was her daughter. For months, Crystal had been searching for Callie, and in the end, it was a face online that finally gave her an answer. That's the promise of facial recognition technology. A face can travel further now, across platforms, across databases, across the world. But systems like these only work because they sort through billions of pictures of the rest of us to get there. Not just when we're missing, but while we're living ordinary lives. And once a system can identify almost anyone in a crowd, it doesn't stay limited to missing person cases for long. Sooner or later, someone asks what else it can do. This is Click Here. Click Here is a production of Recorded Future News and PRX. Today's show was written and produced by Megan Dietrich, Sean Powers, Erica Gaida, Zach Hirsch, and Casey Georgie. It was edited by Karen Duffin and Sarah Quevedo, and fact-checked by Darren Ankrum. Original music is by Ben Livingston, with additional music from Blue Dot Sessions. Our staff writer is Lucas Riley, our illustrator is Megan Goff, and our sound designers and engineers are Jake Cook and Jesse Neiswanger. Find us on X or Facebook at Click Here Show. Or leave us a voice message at 661-5CH-TALK. Sometimes we'll turn those moments into reporting, sometimes into a conversation, and sometimes into a future story you'll hear on this show. I'm Dina Temple-Reston, and thanks for listening.